Hi friends, we're out here at Shadbush Nature Center and we're going to take a look at this big beautiful world. Now when you look at this meadow right here, you might drive by this in your car and you might think, oh yeah, there's a bunch of grass and oh look over there, there's some trees and oh some dead grass and oh I don't really see anything. But what really is in the meadow? Come on closer, let's take a look. This is called observation, and we're going to be good observers today because that's what scientists do. Come on closer, let's take a look. So now that you're closer, we can take a closer look at this meadow. And you can see different kinds of plants growing. And you might say, well, I see some things that are green, but I see other things that are kind of brown or yellow. They look kind of dead. And you're right, it's fall. So these things are dying and they're making seeds to fall on the ground for next year's plants. You can see all different kinds of plants too. Now, we'll take a closer look at that in a minute. You might also think, but I don't see any animals. Where's all the animals? Well, you might not see any animals right now, but I see evidence that there have been animals here. Would you like to see? If we take a closer look, we can actually see evidence that an animal was here. Come here and look. See this on the ground? Kind of looks like raisins, doesn't it? This is evidence that an animal has been here. An animal was here. It was probably eating some of this delicious grass. And then, well, you know what animals do after they eat. Yeah, they go potty. And so this is animal potty. And yeah, this tells us that an animal was here. And it was eating, and it was munching, and it was having a good old animal time. It was probably a deer. Let's look at what else we can find. Here we have some plants that have died, and on top they've left some seed pods. These probably were flowers at one time, but now inside there are seeds, and they'll fall off and make seeds for next year's plants. You can also see a little purple flower that's still growing, and of course making more seeds for next year's plants. All these seeds will fall on the ground and make more plants for next year. Right here we can see some grass that has dried. It's not alive anymore. And the seeds are right here on the top. So the birds can eat them, and oh look, when I do that, the seeds fall on the ground. So guess what will happen to them next spring? Yes, exactly. The ones that don't get eaten by the birds, well, they'll grow into new grass. The interesting thing is we can use our hand lens to look more closely. And we can see those nice little fluffy parts, and we can see those little seeds. Isn't that cool? Wow, there's a lot to see in the meadow. Even when it just looks like a bunch of grass, there is a lot to see. Now we're going to go over there by the forest. Now you might look this way when you're driving down the road in your car and you think, oh, there's a bunch of trees. Oh, there's just some woods. What good are woods anyway? There's nothing there but a bunch of trees. Well, guess what? Friends, when you look closely at the woods, at the forest, at the trees, there's really a lot to see. Come closer so we can observe. The first thing I want you to see is that this tree happens to be an oak tree. Not all trees are the same kind of tree. This is an oak tree because of the shape of its leaf. This is really cool. It's an oak tree, but not all the other trees in this area are oak trees. Oak trees are deciduous trees. That means they will lose their leaves. They'll turn brown like this, and fall off the tree in the fall. Not all trees are like that, and not all deciduous trees are oak trees. Let's see what else we can find. Let's go into the woods. Now that we're in the forest, we can see another kind of tree. This one's a maple tree. I'm going to pull it very gently so we can look at the leaves. Do you see how the leaves are a different shape? They're not lobey like the oak tree was. They're pointy and they kind of stick out in 3 directions this way and 2 back that way. So this is a maple tree. It's another deciduous tree. It will lose its leaves in the fall, but it's not an oak tree. It's a little bit different. Now, if you look on the ground in the forest, there's all kinds of things to see down here. This leaf litter is from all the years that things have fallen. Leaves have been falling off the trees for years and years, and, well, who rakes the forest, right? Nobody. You know what these leaves are going to eventually turn into? More soil for the trees. That'll be great, right? And guess who does that work? Well, there's little insects and things that chew on those leaves and break them up and smush them up and turn them into soil. And you can see that process going on right here in this old dead piece of wood. There's mushrooms growing here. Now these aren't the kind of mushrooms you'd want to eat. We'd never actually touch them and certainly never put them in our mouths. But these are some of the things that would help break down leaves and old wood and make it into soil so the trees can use it. There's also a lot of insects crawling around in there. We can see their holes. And if we hold our hand lens there, we can see their holes up close. I just saw a few insects moving, as a matter of fact. That's pretty cool. There's also some acorn caps. Oh, look. This is an acorn cap. It fell off an oak tree. The acorn is gone. I'll bet a squirrel had some lunch. But the acorn cap is lying on the ground. All kinds of things to see down here. When I walk past something like this, I think, oh look, there's a restaurant for some bugs. There's a lot of leaves in the forest, on the trees, on the plants, and sometimes it's fun to just look up close at those leaves. I've got my handy dandy hand lens. Let's take a look. Wow, when I hold my hand lens, now remember I put it on the object and then I pull it away, I can see that the edge of this leaf is really not smooth at all. It's kind of sawtoothed. That's cool. And there's these stripy things running down the middle of the leaf. I wonder what that's all about. That's really cool, isn't it? In fact, if I turn it over, I can see them even better. Those must be the veins on the leaf that carry water to all the parts of the leaf. Wow, that is really cool. With a hand lens, we can really see the forest up close and personal. All right, friends, we've been looking at the forest and we've seen lots of cool deciduous trees and we've seen lots of great leaves and even a place for bugs to have a snack. But what else is there to see? Let's go look. From up here, we can get a beautiful view of the valley down there. And we're going to go down there and see what the wetlands look like. From up here, it just looks like a bunch of trees. But down there, it's going to look a lot different. Here's another thing to look at. Not all tree bark is the same. This tree bark is very rough. You can see it has lots of folds and crevices in it. You can even imagine little bugs kind of crawling around in there. It's very rough. This bark over here on this tree is very smooth. Smooth to the touch. It doesn't have a lot of folds and crevices. Now some people have been kind of mean to the tree and have carved things on it, and that's not very nice to the tree. But the tree bark itself is just very smooth. Not all tree bark is the same, and that's something else you can find out when you observe closely in the forest. Friends, here we are down at the bottom in the valley, and I could hear this spot before I could see it. When we use all of our five senses in the forest, we can hear things sometimes before we see them. So I could hear this little bit of water going over a little ledge of rock and down over and along its merry way. And it's making such a beautiful tinkling sound. My friends, it's not a very big piece of water. You wouldn't call it a river. You wouldn't call it a brook. You can barely call it a creek. But it is making a very happy noise. And it's carrying with it a lot of beautiful leaves. It's beautiful and clean. It's clear. You can see sand at the bottom and little rocks. Oh, it's cold. When you look very closely, you can see the river pushing the sand around and around and around in a pattern down there. Kind of like a tornado, but it's made of water. It's going around and around in the bottom. It's kind of pretty. And it's making patterns in the sand as it runs down. How beautiful. We're on the boardwalk, and we can see the water running right here under the boardwalk. We can see plants growing down here in the mud and the fallen trees. Look at the moss growing on the fallen log and the little plants that are growing in it too. When we look closely, you can see all these little plants growing right down there, and we can see all the beautiful leaves that have fallen off the trees. Look up, friends. Look at the fall. Let's keep following the creek. See that? I'm walking into these tall plants. They're called Phragmites. They're an invasive species. They don't really belong here, but they grow here. And look how tall they are. I'm walking in a forest that grows in the wetland. here we find the river going under a bridge. Okay, not the river, the tiny little creek. It isn't very big. You might not even notice it if you drove past. But my friends, it's full of living things, and it's nourishing all these plants along it. All these plants are growing here because they can get water. So all along the creek and in the bottoms of the wetland, all these beautiful plants are growing. And then, because all the plants are growing there, the animals come because they like to eat the plants, or they like to hide in the plants. So this tiny little creek and this wetland that you might not even notice if you were far away, well, up close, it's an amazing place to look and observe. In fact, right now I can hear a blue jay singing. Can you hear it too? All you have to do, friends, is open your eyes and observe. Use your 5 senses. I can tell you right now it smells really nice here. And I can hear the water running. What can you see and hear and smell around you? We've made it out to the river, friends. Our little creek, our tiny little creek that wandered through the valley, comes out to join this river. And you can hear the river over here as it goes over some rocks. What do you notice when you observe this river? Is it going straight? Nope. It bends, doesn't it? Bends and turns. It takes pieces of tree with it. That's why you can see some pieces of tree in the river here and over here. Sometimes when the river is really high after it rains or when the snow is melting, then it gets high and really whooshy, and it'll take pieces of tree with it because it's really big at that time. Well, sometimes you even have to observe somewhere at a different time of year and it looks different. What do you think this will look like in a couple of months? Will we see flowers? Probably not. But right now, looks like a great time to get out my hand lens. Look at this beautiful flower. Up close, it's really cool. My friends, the world is such a wonderful place if we just take a little time to think like a scientist and really observe. Get out there and observe, everybody. Take a grown-up with you when you go for a walk. Listen for some birds. Listen for what else you can hear. What do you see? What do you smell? What else can you hear? Can you hear water? When you go on a walk with someone, see what you can observe.